So, this year, I'm mostly focused on bigger videos, and also had some major life disruptions come up, but as a result, I had a few video ideas that never quite made it to production. So while I'm promoting random games with my live streams this month, let's do a video on all the videos I didn't make in 2024. Does this feel like scraping the bottom of the barrel? Maybe. Honestly, as I'm writing this, I've also been feeling a little unsure about the streaming stuff I've been doing. But let's not think about that too much and get right to it. First, the video I was planning to make for the August video, which is on mech builder games. Not mech games with customization like Armored Core or Mech Warrior, but games where making a cool looking robot is kind of the core of the thing. Honestly, I mostly just wanted to talk about Mass Builder and Gundam Breaker 4 using the latter's launch as a sort of hook to make this video more appealing. But yeah, the Rune Factory video took a while and I had some stuff come up, so I never got to make this. So let's just focus on the two games that were really the highlight here. Firstly, there's Mass Builder, which is an indie title notable for its incredibly extensive customization systems. The big standout here is how, for every little section of your mech, you have slots for up to 8 additional parts that you can add to it. For instance, I made from the parts available these additional boosters for the back of the legs of my mech. And when I say 8 parts per section, that is probably more than you are imagining. Where some games might have a single arm part, this game has separate parts for shoulder, upper arm, elbow, lower arm, and hand plating. And you can also make your mech asymmetric and have the 2 arms be different. And this is all on top of painting and decals. You can really get incredibly meticulous with customizing your mech. And in a decision that I really approve of, the customization you choose doesn't actually impact performance at all. The gameplay affecting choices are all in a separate section. Honestly, this alone kind of makes this the ideal mech builder game because you don't have to compromise the mech you're imagining for the sake of performance. Very much illustrates the mech builder genre and what makes it different from something like Armored Core. In Armored Core, building your mech is a problem to be solved, working within the limitations of the world and the parts available. While in Mass Builder, customization exists purely as an avenue for player expression. I can't say either one is better, it all depends on what you want or even just what you're in the mood for, but I think this demonstrates why this is such a fundamental difference that makes me consider Mass Builder and Gundam Breaker to be in a different subgenre of the mech game than something like Armored Core. Back on topic, you also get to build custom weapons, and while these do have a bit more connection between form and function than the mech itself, this is fun in its own way. If there's any one issue with this game, well, honestly it's something I kinda feel bad about bringing up. I hate saying, why didn't a game do X? Because you could always come up with some X for any game, so it feels like you're pulling criticism out of the hat. But here the thing I want to talk about does stand out a little bit. Because Mass Builder lets you have so much control over the fine details, some of the limitations in the big details kind of stand out. Mostly that you're limited to only making humanoid biped mechs. Not tank or hover leg mechs like in many other series, or non-humanoid mechs like in some of the mechs in something like Battletech. And plus your options for weapons, mostly non-melee weapons, do feel a little bit limited. Does this make the game bad? No, but these are limitations that you should be aware of. It only really stands out because the customization is otherwise so incredible. In the end, that's just kind of an issue with judging these games primarily based on their customization. Customization is inherently finite, but when taken in a vacuum, can always benefit from more. Ultimately, truly unlimited customization requires you to learn to draw or 3D model it yourself, which is, not as easy as using a video game character builder. But so long as you don't mind working within the game's constraints, Mass Builder's mech customization is some of the best and most detailed of any customization I've ever seen in any game. It is early access and has been for a while, so buyer beware in that regard, but it's still being updated as of the end of the last month. For those of you in the future, that's November 30th of 2024, and they're already teasing the next update. If it looks interesting to you, check it out. You're guaranteed to get at least a few hours just out of building your mechs. Then, of course, the other half of this abandoned video concept is Gundam Breaker 4. Wow, am I glad that this game came out and I no longer have to pick between recommending Gundam Breaker 3, a game you have to import, and New Gundam Breaker, which kinda sucked. Speaking of New Gundam Breaker, the biggest praise I have for Gundam Breaker 4 is that it undid one of the worst changes from New Gundam Breaker. See, NGB added a system where you could swap parts mid-battle with ones that you'd picked up during the fight. Something that really leans into the toy battling side of things and leans away from the fantasy of pretending these are real mobile suits doing battle. It'd be fine if you could just not use it and enjoy the game all the same, but to fit in this feature they had to make some concessions to customization. Not really a great trade when customization is the big appeal here. New Gundam Breaker gave you far fewer special weapon slots, and you could only set one special weapon per part slot, which meant that parts like from the various full armor Gundams simply couldn't deliver on the fantasy they were supposed to. Secondly, in Gundam Breaker 3 there was a system called build parts. Basically small accessories you could add, many of them functional. So you could, for instance, strap a pair of missile pods to your Gunpla's legs and actually use them in battle. But because your Gunpla was liable to change mid-battle in New Gundam Breaker, and because of the reduced ability slots, this got cut, but thankfully they're back in Gundam Breaker 4. Likewise, Gundam Breaker 4 returns to a more flexible special weapon system, so both of these problems were resolved. But other than improving over the last game, the big reason to play this, or equally to not play this, is just the Gundam license. Your designs are going to look like mobile suits, within a certain range of customization and within the relatively wide range of styles that includes over the 45-year history of the franchise. If you're a Gundam fan, this is part of the fun. I particularly enjoy making my own Ace custom versions of canon mobile suits. I mean, come on, if you're a Gundam fan, I know you've fantasized about that at least once. Unfortunately, they did remove one of the good ideas from New Gundam Breaker, which was the frame system. Basically a class system. While it was flawed, I liked being able to choose a class to adjust my mobile suit's performance, and I liked how it streamlined the RPG mechanics compared to Gundam Breaker 4. Because I am not going to pretend otherwise, Gundam Breaker 4 has some of my least favorite RPG systems in any game I've ever played, except in some ways Gundam Breaker 3. The big issues here is that it tries to cram in the loot system of a particularly bad Diablo-like. There are a lot of numbers focused around part upgrades, which are tedious and require messing around a lot with duplicate parts, and minor secondary abilities on parts, but there's rarely room to do much beyond making numbers bigger with these systems. You can't alter your performance in ways that feels distinctive, and there's not much room for distinctive playstyles either. So ultimately, the system is limited in its ability to create a mobile suit that feels different. I mean, we are dealing with single-digit % bonuses to very specific stats here, like plus 2% energy capacity to ranged weapons of this particular category. That kind of truly meaningless unless you really stack them kind of RPG system. Genuinely, the most positive thing I can say about these systems is that, especially if you play on normal, you don't need to engage too much with them. And really, that's possibly the most damning thing of all. When the best thing you can say is, well, they're not that in the way, because they really do just add nothing to the game besides tedium and eye strain. I really wish the next Gundam Breaker game would cut them down, or just make them interesting so I can at least have fun with them. In addition to decoupling them entirely from customization, Mass Builder did a good job of making its RPG systems nowhere near this agonizing to engage with, even if they are still a little bit numbers for numbers' sake. So yeah, that's Mech Builder games, and the two that I think are most interesting. Notice I didn't talk about combat. Yeah, most of them have merely serviceable action combat. It's good enough that you can have some fun with it, but nothing too deep or noteworthy. Besides, both of these games are about the customization. Really, the combat is just here so you can see your custom mech do its thing. So if you want to fool around and create cool mechs, or maybe you're running or planning to play in a mecha-themed tabletop RPG and need a way to visualize your mech, well, these games are great for that. Next up, Splatoon 3. Okay, honestly, I just wanted to do something to celebrate this game. Back in September, when there was the Grand Festival coming on and celebrating the 2-year anniversary and the game sort of concluding its content update cycle. Especially because this game kinda started the modern incarnation of my channel. I very, very briefly tried to angle towards being a Splatoon channel. Yeah, it did not happen. I kind of forgot how I burn out on games, and about 6 months in, I just kind of stopped playing. Not because I was sick of the game, just I'd put in a few hundred hours and had my fill. Yeah, I'm just not the type to dedicate myself excessively to a single game. Still, I had a fantastic time with the Final Fest, and the game has really improved in later patches. Many of the new maps have been much better than the early ones. There have been some fantastic new weapons. I'm particularly fond of the Dowser dualies, and a lot of the balance changes have finally landed the game at a good state. The Reflux, in particular, has gone from a boring, annoying weapon that's all about painting and spamming its special to a genuinely fun weapon that I actually like playing. I really want to play the game more, actually, but I wound up really occupied with other games and struggling to make the time. But I recommend it with the state it's in now. Unfortunately, that's kind of all I have to say on the matter, which is kind of the reason why I never did this video. Lastly, Slay the Princess. Fuck, how do I even talk about a game like this? It's a visual novel, so it's mostly about the story, and this is a game you need to experience to appreciate. I've really wanted to talk about it though ever since I first played it last year, so let's try. First I'll give you a summary, then I'll give you as much story as I'm comfortable with. The game is essentially a hyper-concentrated visual novel. Going by Steam achievements, it took me less than 2 hours to see the credits my first time around, though going for repeat runs gave me many hours more enjoyment out of this game. You are constantly making choices, and the brevity of the game encourages you to explore and find different routes. The shorter format emphasizes the interactive elements of visual novels to a great degree, and makes going for the alternate routes much more accessible. I can highly recommend this game for people who enjoy visual novels and want a quick fix, or for people who like the idea of visual novels, but just find them too big of a time commitment. And if you already played the base game, I'd like to remind you that the Pristine cut is out now, so go and play it some more. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the first few minutes of this game. This will contain some things that I still feel are spoilers. So if you're already curious enough to feel like, yeah, I want to try this game, skip to the next chapter down below, and then go on Steam and buy the game. It has overwhelmingly positive reviews on there for a good reason. Okay, last call for spoilers. If you're still watching, either stop now or don't complain about any spoilers. Got it? Okay. Time for the smallest amount possible I can tell you about this game. You begin in a forest with two voices in your head. One is the narrator, one is simply known as the hero. The narrator tells you to go into the cabin in the woods, go into the basement, and slay the princess imprisoned there. The hero doesn't like the sound of this. In the following few minutes, you'll have many choices, as well as well-written interactions with the narrator, the hero, and the princess. But no matter what you choose, you will die. And then you'll wake up, back at the start, but with a new voice in your head. Maybe even revealing the time loop concept is too much. But it was when I saw that this exists that I knew I would love the game. I stopped watching the stream highlights I was watching and very shortly after went and bought it and loved it. So I didn't want to leave out this hook because, well, it's better you play the game with this small spoiler than don't play it at all. That's the tricky thing, isn't it? Sometimes there are games in your life that you just never would have played without spoilers. Like, I'm kind of that way with the Metal Gear Solid series. There probably isn't a world in which I've played Metal Gear Solid without spoilers. And that kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Anyway, the time loops are used to great effect to enable its emphasis on choices and exploring different routes, and maybe get a little meta in the process. Don't worry though, there's so much more to uncover in this game. And that's the fun, so please, give this game a try. And those are the subjects I wanted to do videos on this year, but didn't. You know, between this and my recent attempts at streaming, I have been thinking a lot about what I'll be doing next year, in addition to other life stuff. I'd like to be less rigid with my schedule and fixate less on keeping up with imagined expectations that don't do anything to improve the videos. Earlier this year, I switched to doing one video a month, but making it a big video, which I have enjoyed for enabling projects like my Rune Factory video or the Phantasy Star Universe video, but I also wound up scrapping certain projects simply because I felt I didn't have enough material. The topics I covered in this one were ultimately axed for other reasons, except the Splatoon video where I really just had nothing. But I'd like to do more short videos, so I will. But don't worry. Doing it this way, I'll hopefully also have more time to give the biggest videos the time they deserve. In other words, expect more Phantasy Star Online in the new year. And as I'm writing and recording this, I just started Phantasy Star Portable earlier today. And I don't think it'll take me 6 months to have a video ready like it did with Phantasy Star Universe, so expect that in Q1 of 2025. But for now, this is Mikhail, signing off.